Hello and a very warm welcome to this oneness session. My name is Els. For those of you who join us for the first time, let me give you a little bit of a background to this project. Several of us working for one-to-one consulting are meditating on a regular basis. The meditation we practice is called Raja Yoga. It's the yoga of the mind. I find this practice very beneficial, not only in the workplace, but also in my personal life. One of our friends suggested way back in May 2020 that it might be a good idea to share some of these ideas and practices with a wider audience. And so this project was launched in 2020. That was in the middle of the pandemic. It was the COVID time lockdown. And it was a very challenging time for many people around the world. And there were issues such as concerns about people's mental health, depression, anxiety, fear, and uncertainty. So we have started these sessions, and these are half-hour oneness sessions. They are facilitated by experienced meditators from different professional backgrounds and from around the world. The sessions include discussions on topics such as the power of the mind, the importance of resilience, learn how to meditate, and they also include a brief meditation exercise. So far, we have had more than 120 guest speakers who have contributed to this project, and we hope that many people will take benefit from these sessions. They have been recorded and they are available on YouTube. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Jim Ryan, who joins us from Oxford in the UK. Jim has a background as a school teacher and management trainer. He is also a long-time practitioner of Raja Yoga meditation and spiritual study. His path has been through many ways, from exploring the depth of Christianity to the world of human development, both in the educational and corporate world. He is also the author of several books, including How to Relax Your Mind, The Spiritual Mind, A Journey into Awareness, and Meditation, The 13 Pathways to Happiness. So very warm welcome to you, Jim. And the topic for today is the coding of the dream world.
Okay, thank you very much, Els. Yeah, and thank you, and great to meet everybody online. I think Els said decoding of the dream world. I think probably might well be opposite title as well. It's interesting that the mind can be compared, or has been compared to, say, a fluttering moth, attracted and drawn by the lights of a myriad thoughts, objects and feelings. And the moment it tries to settle, it's pulled to another and another. So the mind is continually dreaming and searching for the light of some perfected form, place or thing, dreaming and desiring to reach and embrace a state of, I think, idealized beauty, happiness, and complete fulfillment. It's quite interesting. As a very well known, I remembered it earlier on, and it's a great quote. This is a sort of classic quote on the dream mind by Shakespeare, and this is from The Tempest. And I had to write it down. I can't remember Shakespearean quotes. He said, "We are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our little life is rounded with a sleep." And I think it's quite interesting about this aspect of kind of dreaming. I mean, I was often accused at school of constantly daydreaming, not paying attention. And my mind was always somewhere else. Or I just don't know how I managed to get through my academic life, really, because I was always somewhere or other in different aspects. Were you the same? I'm sure you were. And interesting, isn't it? Are we dreaming? Are you dreaming now? Maybe everything that we're involved in, I'm just putting out there, is a result of our dream mind. Yeah. Maybe everything as a result of that. I think we continually wander, drift in this dream state. And we sort of, they're full of escapist fantasies, longing and yearning for some idealized relationship and experiences, or dealing with nightmarish specters that are kind of haunting us continually. So in a way, I think it's quite interesting when we're looking at this particular experience, that I think it's often put out there that it's often believed that dreams are only related to physical sleep. But I would suggest we are asleep, that you're asleep. A sleep of lost consciousness, having lost touch with our natural waking state of spiritual awareness. So thus in our dream state, we're either lost in some, as I was mentioning, enjoyable, escapist fantasy, or desperately trying to elude maybe the disturbing specters and fears of past negative memories. Now, the question we might say, well, what is the reason for this particular state, this dream state? I think it's really what's happening is that's what's continually happening is that we're replaying thoughts that the mind is continually experiencing. We're replaying back to ourselves. And these are from memories of past actual experiences that we've been through. So when the present doesn't match these particular states, the mind tries to return to those experiences, or in a worst case scenario, is drawn to a recurring fear or guilt. Yet, though these memories belong to the past, I think what happens is that they're not erased. Nothing is ever lost. That everything is kept. I think most of us can have heard about this and understand this, that everything that's caught in the subconscious mind, it catches everything. It's called the dustbin, isn't it? Everything that we've experienced is etched into our subconscious nature, our subconscious memory. And so maybe all these effects and influences, these traumas and experiences have slipped into the mind's deep subconsciousness, and that's where they remain. Now, these slumbering experiences are then reanimated and recalled by memories, triggers, such as maybe very slightly, it could be sounds, colors, words, images, or forms. And they kind of they kind of come from the depths and they become kind of real again. And we start to experience it in that particular way. I don't know if that's been your experience, that suddenly you find yourself dealing with things, and suddenly something or other has triggered this kind of an alternative state of thinking, an alternative state of feeling, or perusing some kind of other aspect or something that's completely unrelated to what you're doing. So what happens is that it's quite interesting. The dream mind is drawn away from its surface focus, and then it drifts in a sort of maybe a conscious or subconscious state, looking, searching, scouring, hoping to find and reunite with its idealized feelings and forms. It's quite interesting that we can see here a connection with Plato's world of perfected forms, and according to Plato, each holds these forms and constantly strives to connect or reunite with those forms. And so in the same way, I'm suggesting that these idealized forms are past experiences which we hold and are trying to relive and reconnect with again. These delusions, because they are really delusions, are further compounded, of course, by our materialistic society that declares that all your needs can only be met through accumulation and form. So in accepting this, which we all do, I think to some degree, isn't it? It's been drilled into us from such an early age, isn't it? That the philosophy of consumerism and materialism is that you have to accumulate, you have to possess for you to progress, to become a valid member of society, and to become a meaningful member of our interactive world and all that kind of stuff. So what happens is that in accepting this, we move further away from our spiritual nature, drifting lost in the fantasies of what might be and what could be. An interesting effect of these imaginings, I think, is the feelings and emotion expressed. But it's always tinged with, I believe anyway, with some form of regret. We see it through poetry, writing, music, and the arts. They're all very beautiful, but there's a kind of sadness within it. For a return to this wonderful one-time world, this idealized time of beauty and harmony and well-being. And it's always looking for that. It's quite interesting, isn't it, to kind of look at the arts, and all of it is looking back. It looks back to a time of idealized form or of beauty. However, I think for the majority, the dream mind results in a dysfunctional state. And so because it takes us away from our present focus into kind of what happens to, I think, escapist fantasy states, either past or future. And these are past or future dream states of projection, where often not, after a while, the experiencer often prefers to stay, and it becomes like a narcotic, causing the mind to forget its role. You forget what's happening in the present moment. This sort of narcotic, drug-like experience its fumes overtake you, and you kind of prefer that kind of this otherworldly experience, which is much more preferable to what's happening at the present, which is probably not as idealistic and not as kind of experiential as you would like it to be. And so it forgets its role, it forgets its journey, it forgets its purpose, resulting in being totally lost to the dream fantasy, that people often kind of are lost within this. And of course, many prefer not to return to it. We prefer to live in this kind of lost world of experience in that particular way. And so it's interesting that some of the effects that we sometimes go through in that particular way, I mean, as the mind drifts, it's quite interesting, sort of aimlessly, it's a sort of aimlessly drifting, moving from one hopeful kind of fantasy scenario, semi-aware, it's a sort of semi-consciousness, into a subconscious world where it meets and unearths its past negative effects. This is one of the things that can happen, say, of old trauma, because as you go back, you're not only going to meet sometimes the idealized state that you've experienced, that you're trying to retrieve, but I think it also meets some of these old traumas, unrequited experiences. And more often than not, what happens is, by going back, these are reanimated. We reanimate them. We relive them mentally or emotionally or both. And so we go through a kind of semi-traumatizing experience. So from the suppression of these fearful dreams that we're pushed into the subconscious, or the remnants of them, they are brought into a waking form of fear. They reanimate as some kind of fearful nature that's created within ourselves, or anger that why am I not experiencing this? Why am I experiencing this rather than that? And possibly some paranoia. We can explain paranoia. And these are projected down into our present world around us, blaming, and we start to blame our world. We start to blame others for not providing the solutions or not providing that experience that we're looking for. We become so mixed up, the past and the present, and maybe a kind of distant future. And also, interesting enough, isn't it? This inner world, this inner journey, we can lose contact with our present world, as we can begin to see. We're losing contact with it, and we become disaffected. I think this is another cause is a disaffection with the present situation, with the present relationships. That why is not my partner, why is not my family fulfilling what it should do, what I believe it should do, this idealized form we have in our mind. I think it is interesting. My take on it is that we have an idealized form for everything that we do. Maybe at work, with the relationships, an idealized form of ourselves, an idealized form, the perfected self. And we kind of have that as a backdrop, or it's part of our present day position. And so we kind of, there's a sort of discontentment with kind of our nature. And we become maybe besotted, or we become engrossed with the things of our imaginative past. We live in the past, or we're comparing to the past and our deep desires. And we try to relive the past again in different ways, either just lost to it or try to impose what we feel or what we felt was evident at that time and what brought that kind of happiness. And it kind of eased so many other kind of complications. So our dream searching, the dream mind, is also searching connected to the future. We've been looking at the past a little bit here, isn't it? That one of the effects is that this is looking at, we're looking at a future, what once was, will be in the future, and we substitute it for coming scenarios. The present is forgotten. It's quite interesting. We forget the present or disregard it for this longed for, wonderful world tomorrow. And so it's always tomorrow. And we live in this projected fantasy scenario that we kind of are imagining. We're trying to bring the past into the future or the present. And so this trawling of the inner world, we're trawling of the subconscious, has a big effect on our kind of on the psychic energy field, I think, of the present. That disturbing others around us, disturbing the field, focusing on what's happening now, and it's bringing a kind of an effect within our present day situation. Everything is in kind of turbulence in that particular way. And it brings that kind of disturbing vibrational energy into that particular way. So the question is, isn't it? So what's really happening, what are we really searching for? I think we would be right to say everything we think about. I think we're thinking about everything, all of which can be encapsulated, I believe anyway, in one particular aspect. We're looking for ourselves. Our dreaming and idealized yearning has been a desperate search for our spiritual self. And we've split it, we've kind of fragmented it, we've decompartmentalized it into many different forms and systems. But actually, if we bring it together, we've been looking for ourselves, search for the Holy Grail, search for the Christ child, search for the ring and all the rest of it. All of these are kind of analogies which we've kind of created in literature for really ourselves. We're looking for ourselves. So as consciousness became externalized through materialism, we looked outside, and now with the key of insight, we're beginning to maybe make sense of our kind of external world, which we've kind of created outside ourselves. And we turn to our inner world and discover the doorway to the realization of our dreams, to the things we really want, what we're trying to somehow articulate, somehow we're trying to kind of bring together or formulate in a kind of perfected world through things or through possessions. And we're trying to kind of like understand it, where it's all coming from. You know, that in fact, we're actually trying to return to the past, which is really the present, which is also the future, not to complicate it, to the world of truth and realization. And it's quite interesting, you know, that there's a great saying, which I really like from Jung. And he says, it's quite interesting. He said that who looks outside dreams, who looks inside wakes, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside wakes. It's like you're waking up to that kind of reality. We're dreaming. If we're looking outside, we're just dreaming, remembering, lost in this kind of drift world of fantasy or illusion. So now I think through spirituality, which is really the journey into our inner dimension. I think it's a much maligned term, isn't it? Spirituality it immediately brings up the term, you know, fundamentalism of religious practices when we think of spirituality, though that's beginning to change as well. But I think through spirituality, through this discovery, through this journey into our deep subconscious truth, we gain clear water. I think this is really quite interesting, is that we're able to connect with our true identity, so long obscured and suppressed, emerging like a colossus, really. You know, there's this emerging full of spiritual power, virtues, and qualities. Maybe it might be an interesting time to just maybe have a short reflection. What do I mean by that? I mean, I was just thinking earlier, you know, like how can we show this? But then it may be just good to just reflect on really this experience of the original self. And it's just a thought. We're just a recurring thought, a returning thought, and reminding ourselves, remembering. I always like the term remembering. You know, like for me, meditation is another term for recalling. We're recalling kind of a long lost truth or something that was real that's been forgotten. And so just have a few thoughts as we just step back from where we're at this moment, and just have a thought that I think of myself as a being of light, a spiritual energy. I'm a shining light point, a star point of pure consciousness. I'm not this physical body or form or role. I'm a living spiritual energy, eternal and unlimited, a shining light point, a star point of pure consciousness. Just hold that just for thoughts, just for a few moments. It's quite interesting, isn't it, that when you begin to kind of connect with this kind of unlimited level of awareness, and this term awareness kind of comes back to ourselves, we become aware. There's a kind of a light is kind of growing within our awareness. And so as the clouds of maybe our dream world clear, you know, connecting with our inner wisdom, our inner truth, we begin to see and understand who we really are. We begin to understand our journey. We begin to see the context of of my being now, and the journey, the progression, and the destination. It becomes sort of a kind of self-evident to ourselves. We begin to understand, say, where we're at and the things we're going through, the trials and the tribulations, and understand that what we're going through. And I think now, linked, I think, through our own spiritual regenerative energies and linked to God's great power, especially in meditation, we can now move away from the influence of the past. Because I think it's such a huge influence, it's such a huge factor in derailing our kind of life and take us into sort of so many cul-de-sacs of confusion and kind of lost understanding. And we can regenerate our inner strength and inner power. And then we can deal much more effectively with the issues that are in front of ourselves. I think this is really very just simply just coming back, it's holding the present moment, held in encapsulated in the sense of who we really are. And I kind of, someone told me, I wrote this down, someone sent this to me the other day, and I kind of kept it. And there's a reason, and it was saying that, I don't know who it's from, but it was saying, and it's really opposite for this particular topic. Every morning, you have two choices. Continue to sleep with your dreams, or wake up and chase them. Quite nice, isn't it? You have two choices. Continue to sleep with your dreams, live in this kind of fantasy, or wake up and chase them. So I'll stop there. Thank you. I hope it wasn't too confusing.
Thank you very much, Jim. No, it was not confusing at all. I have written down a few things for myself that you have highlighted. By living in this materialistic world, we have drifted away from our natural state of awareness, as if we are lost in a dream world. Very interesting. But also you quoted Jung, who said that if we look outside, we are actually dreaming. If we look inside ourselves, we are awake. So I feel it's really important, as you mentioned, that we need to connect with our true identity, and we need to move away from the influence of the past. So thank you so much, Jim, for sharing your thoughts on this topic and for guiding us into this short reflective exercise. For the audience, I hope you have enjoyed the session, and we're looking forward to welcoming you again to the next Oneness session. So have a very nice day. Bye-bye.